I'm going to do a last call. Anybody out in the lobby that wants to be in here for our meeting? And I would ask one more time, if you have not had a chance to sign in, member or non-member, we would ask you to please sign in so we have a record of attendance today for the minutes. Please print your name so that when we do the minutes, we'll be able to spell it correctly. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. Thank you for giving your time to be here for the business of the church. We have a couple of items of business to take care of today. Before we get started, Pastor James is trying to, last minute, we forgot about having the minutes from the special meeting that we had in November available to approve. So just a last minute detail that we're trying to wrap up, and he's going to bring that in here. As we get going, we have one item that we're voting on today, which is why this is called a congregational meeting. Our Constitution indicates, our bylaws, that if we spend more than $40,000, we need to have congregational approval for that. And we're going to vote today on some furnace replacement. And then we're also going to do an informational segment to talk about the current financial situation of the church and the parking lot campaign. And Pastor James has a little presentation that he's going to give when he comes back in. Did anybody have a chance to look at the special congregation minutes from last November? Crickets, right? I'm sure that was at the forefront of your mind and you were ready to run and get yourself a copy so that you can make sure that everything was in order. So that would be our first time of business, to have somebody make a motion to approve those special congregational minutes. It's just kind of a tedious task we have to take care of. Does anybody feel confident in the fact that they were accurate? John Darrow, you're going to make a motion to approve our special congregational minutes, and we have a second from Rick Mavis. Okay, well, we're approving them without them even being here. Okay, so we do have copies of the minutes down here from the last meeting. No, we haven't voted yet. So do you want to see a copy before we do that? Okay, but we do have a motion to accept them that came from John Darrow, and we had a second from Rick Mavis. So any discussion on the minutes? Then I would call a vote. All those in favor of approving the special minutes from our congregational meeting on November, what was the date on that? 24th. November 24th, say aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, then we're going to move on, and I'm going to turn the floor over to Pastor James, and he's going to start with a little presentation to kind of give you the gist of what's going on today and where we're going to go from here.
Yeah, let me open us in prayer. And are we rolling back there for YouTube? Anybody that wanted to watch online? Great. All right, Jesus, we are here today. We are a congregation. We're a family. And as we've talked about finances the last 3 weeks, we want to honor you with the things that we do with our finances. So, Father, today is a day to update our church family and how we're doing and what we're proposing, and to make some decisions as a family. So we give you this time. We ask for your wisdom. Lord, we pray that we could have good discussion, and if there are questions, Lord, that we could end up wherever we end up, unified and following you with everything that you're calling us to. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. So the financial report I've been asked to give is going to cover not only some of these projects that we're going to be voting on and talking about, but also kind of where we are in the year as far as giving. So the first slide there is a report, kind of an update. Our fiscal year goes from July to the end of June. And so from July through January, and I know we've actually completed February, but we outsource our accounting so that we have a third party that's handling the accounting and the treasurer role. And our budget, to remind you, was $405,000. That was what the elders came up with. That's what we as a congregation approved at our annual meeting back in probably May. Maybe it was June. No, it would have been June of last year. So we're 7 months, the end of January would be 7 months into that. So 7 months as a percent would have been $236,250 is kind of how much of that budget year we would be into if everything tracked exactly as percentages do. The next figure there, you see our actual expenses. You can't see because of my big board. Let me just take that down for now. How's that? Now you can see. All right. So our actual expenses year to date are running a little bit higher than that, but pretty similar. There's a lot of things that end up being front loaded. We paid for all the snow plowing for the year already, insurance payments, things like that. The next figure that you'll see is where we are with our tithes and offerings. So we have taken in, we've all given collectively $208,104, and again, that is to the end of January. So we've actually given more in February, but we don't have any of those numbers in this yet. So you can see that we are lagging behind a bit on where we should be for budget and also for our expenses that we've actually spent. We have talked as an elder board and staff about tightening up and making sure that we're being as wise and shrewd as we can with everything that we spend. There are a lot of things in a church that you just have to pay. About 60%, I think somebody said, of our budget is paychecks that have been committed to, and then there's things like electric bill, natural gas bill, insurance, stuff like that, snow plowing. So it leaves a smaller slice of things that you can actually say, oh, don't spend any more money there. Normally, when we set an annual budget, and a lot of you know this, we try to set our budget based on what we think we as a congregation will be giving. Now, we're blessed that we actually have another source of income as a church, and that is the rental of our building, specifically the rentals of our gym. And we've always looked at that money as kind of an over and above money that's coming in, that if something happened, as it did a few years ago, and suddenly nobody's renting that space, that we're not taking that money into an account when we set our budget. So the $405,000 was what we predicted we would take in a year in giving, and then that we would also have about $50,000 on top of that that comes in from rentals. Last year it was $55,000. This year we're predicting it'll be about $45,000. So if you go to the next slide, yeah, you'll see the building rentals. I'm sorry, one back there. Well, leave that there. Whatever. So far, year to date, we've taken in $26,804 from our rentals. So altogether, our income, when including that, is $234,908. Now, again, the way that we've structured is that that money from the rentals is supposed to be kind of rainy day fund or over and beyond for projects that need to be done. This year, we have had to use that money to pay for our expenses because giving has been behind what we set the budget at. Bottom line is we are paying our expenses. Our income and our expenses are very close. $234,908 at the end of January with expenses of $240. So we're about $5,000, $5,500 behind in what we have spent over what we have brought in altogether. I'm going to pause there and ask if there's any questions about that. Jordan. Correct. No. And that's the next slide I'm going to go to actually show what our accounts are, because in the last few years, giving has been above what we had budgeted for, and we didn't have to use any of the rental money, and that accumulated in our account. And we're kind of saying, oh, well, why has that money been accumulating in our account? We're not spending it, but now we think we see maybe why that money's been accumulating. Now we have some needs. So. I don't know that we've ever applied for any grants. I know that this church was one of the few churches that did not apply for the PPP loans back during COVID. A lot of churches applied for that. I wasn't here during that time, but I know that is the case. And there's not a lot of grants for churches unless the church is engaged in something, I don't know what to say. Sometimes there are grants, but no, we haven't identified anything. Yeah.
My question is that 405 annual budget, do you set your annual budget by what you think you're going to receive?
Correct.
As contribution?
Yes. So last year, we took in total about $500,000. Now that includes the gym rentals, which were 55 grand, and that also includes money that is given specifically to something. So that money does not show up here. So if a couple of people have already given money to the parking lot, some people have specifically given money to missions. None of that money that's specifically given shows up in any of these numbers. So last year, we took in 500 total, but some of that was designated. The undesignated money was like 410 or something like that. So we thought we were being pretty conservative.
You put the budget together with what you expect for expenses?
Correct.
And then figure, but sounds a little odd to me that you're budgeting everything that you're expecting to have come in on tithing.
Okay.
To me, you gotta have a budget that says, here's our expenses for personnel, for building,
Right.
heat, and everything else. What's that number?
Yep. So we've kind of done it both ways. So as you're growing, like our church has grown a lot, and the giving up until this year was outpacing our needs. So we were ending up with surpluses every year. So it was like we would say, hey, last year we took in this amount, but like you said, we know we want to grow. So the first year I got here, the budget was 240, I think. But we brought in like 340. So we had a cushion that we added to the checking account, and then we also said, oh, well, next year we can budget probably 350. But then that next year we brought in 400. So it was kind of the giving just kept outpacing where we were budgeting for. And this is the first year where it's like, we didn't think we were reaching for the moon. We didn't think that we were being, crazy with the number. We thought we were actually being pretty conservative. But for whatever reason, and I've heard different theories on it, it's just where we are. I don't know if we know the exact answer, and it could be several different things. So, yeah. That question, I'm blanking on your name. Denny, thank you. Denny. Braun, B-R-O-A-N. B-R-A-U-N, sorry. Please, yeah.
I think I would comment on when the budget is set, Denny, when we look at, because I wasn't part of it last year, but 2 years ago I was. We look at what we did the past year, and is that valid? Is it reasonable? And then also looking at ministry going forward. So when we talk about that budget increasing, it wasn't increasing in like, wow, everybody got a really great raise, or we switched to gourmet coffee instead of Folgers. It was increase in ministry needs. With our growth has come more staff, and with our growth has come more ministry needs. So we have had more money expended on women's ministry or men's ministry. So they correlate. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, we were able to budget for better coffee and a lot of other things, but still be kind of conservatively like around the number that we had taken in the previous year. So, any other questions? And just to remind us all, these numbers are available every month. So every month that the elders get these treasurer reports, there's a 3-page report that we put out, and we put copies on what we call the informational hub. And that hub is between my office door and the main office door. And you'll find things there like church beliefs, the membership interest form, the financial packet from the previous month, the elder minutes from previous month. So, do check those, and we want people to know, and you can ask questions at any time. So that's kind of where we are. Now we want to look at kind of Jordan's question of, well, what about, what do we have in the bank? And we did also have some unforeseen challenges this year, and you've probably heard. So while I was away on vacation, one of our furnaces, it's a very large furnace, it sits on the roof behind the gym, went out. And maybe go back. Sorry, I'm not helping you there. Yeah. So the gym furnace and AC replacement, there's 2 large units on the roof. One of them has stopped working. For heating season, that's okay. We can heat with 1 unit. I guess you need twice as much for the air conditioning side. And so we're fine for now. The 1 unit is carrying the load. But by the time we get to the summer, probably 1 would not be able to air condition the building as well. So we've got a quote, and we had several quotes. The best quote would be to replace the one for $27,000, but because they're both the same age, we're wondering if it wouldn't be good to go ahead and replace both at the same time. And the price for that, we save a couple $1,000s by doing them both at the same time, because you have to bring a crane in. These are such large units that you got to have a crane to take the old ones off and put new ones on. So the elders feel good about going ahead with that replacement of both of those. The other foreseen challenge, the next one there, click on, was that we have had a little bit of leaking in our roof. Now, when I came on here, and I remember Jim, there were several stained ceiling tiles, and we went ahead and we replaced those ceiling tiles, and for 3 years, none of our ceiling tiles got any leaks. And we thought, well, it must mean the roof is good. But now we had a heavy winter, and guess what? It started leaking in those same spots again. So now we realized, we started looking at it more, and we have come to the realization through looking through a bunch of stuff that this section of the roof here was put on in 1981. So that makes it 40-some years old, 45 years old, 44? That's pretty old. And so when we were up there, we discovered there's starting to be some cracking and things, so that is moving to the top of the list. We got a quote for replacing that section at $24,400. The next oldest sections are here and then over the nursery, and those were put in 1996. Those membranes are not cracking. Those membranes look good, but we have had a couple of little leaks coming in this area over the kids' church room and the youth room. We're hoping that we can find where that is and fix that, because the whole roof seems to be in good shape. The membrane is not cracking or old. So we have a quote for $24,400 for something that we feel like needs replacing, but there could be more money in finding some of these little fixes, and specifically under the furnaces. I don't know if you can see off the back of the gym, this is the two big furnaces. So when those get pulled off the roof, even if we don't replace that whole roof section, we need to replace the roof section under those furnaces, because you don't want to wait 10 years and say, oh, now we got to get a crane and lift the furnaces up to do the roof underneath where they sit. So when you replace those, you got to do at least that section. So that's going to be another probably $5,000, $6,000, $7,000. So some of that is still in flux, but we feel like we have a little bit of an idea of what those costs are going to be, and we're still waiting for another bid from another roofing company. So we have one in, we're waiting for another one. So that's kind of the big unforeseen challenges or expenses. Now we also are in the midst and kicking off a parking lot campaign. And some of you are like, yeah, I thought we were kicking that off like weeks ago. And when all of this started happening, our elder board said, okay, hold on here. Let's make sure that we know what this building needs, what that's going to cost, and make sure we still feel good about how we're moving forward on this other thing, and what amount of money that we have in the bank can put towards it. So now if you go to the bank account slide, currently we have a fund, we call it our capital expense fund, and that has a little over $27,000 as of the end of last month. I think it's actually a little bit higher now. So one could look at that fund being used for the roof repair. Our main checking account, as of last night, I looked, had $157,982. So I think that that's enough money that would take care of the furnaces. And then that would still leave us, on the next slide, with this account that we've talked about that was set up as the building fund account and now has been changed into what we're calling the parking lot account. That will still have a roughly $100,000 in it. That money will be put against the parking lot. So the parking lot bid from Elmer's was a very generous bid, came in at $361. Putting $100,000 against that means that we've got to raise around $260. And so can I do the big reveal now? Can I show our little thing? Oh, get this back up here. Our very talented Char Black, I asked her if she could put together a thermometer for us, because every capital campaign has to have a thermometer, right? And we came up with this fun thermometer here with a cartoonized version of what that parking lot is going to look like. And then our thermometer are parking spots. How cute is that? And so every $10,000 we raise, we'll put another car in the parking lot until the cars fill the parking lot up to 260. So that will be going out this next week. So as you can see, the elders believe that we are in good financial shape. We are paying our expenses, even though this year we've had to do it with money that typically would be the gravy above and beyond. We've had to use that for this rainy day. But because the last few years we've had so much money come in that we've just kind of put aside for something in the future, well, a lot of those something in the futures are coming right now. And so we still feel like we can replace these furnaces. We can replace the oldest section of the roof. We can fix what's underneath the furnaces in that little section of the roof and still contribute this $100,000 towards a new parking lot in that campaign. And that will still leave us with kind of a cushion of around $100,000 in our main checking. Any questions on all of that? Denny?
Do you have a time schedule that parking lot would be done or get done? Or?
Yep. I think the time schedule at this point is going to flow based on the money that comes in. So Elmer's has extended our contract signing. Originally, they gave us a bid in the fall and said that they wanted to have us sign on it by March 1st. We went back to them and said, hey, a whole bunch of things have happened. We have to have another congregational meeting, and could you extend that to April 15th? And they said, no problem. No problem at all. Let us know if you still, need some more time or whatever. So they're still guaranteeing that original quote.
Consider the loan against contributions in order to
Yeah.
make sure you get started?
So the first thing that we want to do is start into this capital campaign. We've been talking about it. We've asked people to pray, and I think we'll know within 3 or 4 weeks, how much of this parking lot, how high we get. And then based upon that, the elders will have to have more conversations. So if we, get half of what we need, the elders will have to say maybe now we look at additional pledges. Because at this point we're not asking for pledges, we're asking for gifts above and beyond what we're normally giving. And you can see how important it is that we don't shift our giving from our normal stewardship to pay for the parking lot, because we're tight in our normal expenses. But there'll be more things that if we don't blow the top off of this in a month's time, that we will have to consider other alternatives. Those could be just saying, well, this is going to be a long campaign, and we'll just keep, asking people to contribute as they are able. And when we get there, knowing that Elmer's costs could go up, that's always a danger. That would be one option. Asking for pledges could be an option. A loan is always an option. And there's different feelings about all of these options, of course. But that'll be up to the elder board to discuss, and then ultimately probably to bring a recommendation based on what they choose back here. If they decided that we were going to get a loan, we own this building and property outright, but if they decided, hey, we're going to borrow a loan, that would obviously have to come back to congregation for approval and discussion. So we haven't decided what will happen if we don't hit that number. We've just said, hey, let's go for it and see where we come in.
We were going to wait and see where we were at in about a month when the initial campaign took off. John, did you have a question?
Just a question.
Go ahead.
Do we still have that furnace fund, or is that been folded into the capital expense?
We do. That's the capital expense. Yeah. At one time we had separate funds, like one for the furnace, one for this one. Yeah, we kind of pooled that together and called it capital expense. So.
And for those of you who have been around here for a while, you remember when we did the roof campaign the last time, and it kind of stretched on until we felt like we had the money to replace the roof, or it became a necessary evil. And that's kind of the parking lot too. The elders have identified that we have a parking lot that needs replacing. We know that it is an issue, and that will happen in God's time, right? Not ours. So we're going to throw this out there, and we're going to see what happens. And then we'll make decisions as we go forward. When we had talked in November, I had asked, in my words, for all of you to trust the elder board that we would not proceed with a project that we didn't feel that we could financially tackle. And we still are of the same mindset. That's the parking lot. I want to go back to the furnace situation. Now that you kind of have seen the numbers, we do have the furnace situation to talk about and a vote to happen. I want to give a little more background information before we do any more discussion, however, because I know that there's some people sitting in the seats in here who want to know if we dotted our T's, dotted our I's, and crossed our T's. There we go. So when this all hit, when Pastor James left on vacation.
I'll never do that again. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Ashley staying in the back, I'd like to say a big thank you to Ashley and to James Anderson, who's sitting back there hiding, because we had to sort out what was going to happen. We have a furnace that is not operating at all, and we have another one that's truthfully limping along. And we had people come out and take a look at them, and found out that we've had some like active fire situations, it sounds like, inside. We had a missing belt. We have like, it's a hot mess. So it was quickly resolved that we are not gonna be able to fix the furnaces. And I've been a part of this church for a very long time, and I told Pastor James that I've been hearing about these furnaces and the problems behind them for, I don't know, like 30 years. And we've had some leaking that has happened there because of the membrane on the roof. So they've been a problem for a long time. In that history, in that course of history, we have talked about doing some different things. There's an attic dead space up in the great room, and there's been some talk over the years about, well, can we put furnaces in there? Well, the answer is no. When we thought outside the box and asked for some advice on how to proceed, and talked with the people that know what they're doing, their advice was that it was cost prohibitive and would require too many units to use that attic dead space. So I know that there's a few of you in this room that would wonder if we had looked into that, and we did. There was also some discussion about the new addition has a nice big like storage room. Could we put the furnaces in there? And the answer was no, because we would need to run all new ductwork. Part of the problem of using the dead space in the storage room, in addition to the ductwork, was also the cooling system that went behind it, because the cooling system would be an additional expense as well to use that space. So I want to just confirm that we did look at several options and avenues rather than just repeating what we've already done. But it appears that repeating what we've already done is the way to go. That being said, Ashley put it out to everybody that she could find that would be willing to be interested in making a bid. And we had 2 or 3 that told us off the top, no, not interested. Job's too big for us, we're not interested. It was 2 companies that it came down to that actually were willing to take on the job and give us a bid, D&W Mechanical and Grant Mechanical. The elders are asking you to proceed with, to vote to proceed with the Grant Mechanical bid that came in at about the $52,000, and that would be to replace both furnace units. And the AC, it's all one, it's all in one. D&W was $35,000 just to replace one. And when we asked, well, what would the price be for 2? And he said, well, double that. So they quickly, and a little more detail on that. D&W was for a 15-ton train unit, and the unit from Grant Mechanical is a 12.5-ton ream unit. We have currently a 12.5-ton unit on the roof right now. So we're replacing what we have with what we already have. Further research, with just because I have a father that's in the heating business or is retired, had him do some deep dive and talk to people that he knows, and it was confirmed that the ream unit is the one that we want, and that Grant Mechanical is a very sound operation, and that we could proceed with confidence. So that is my research, and that's my information to share. Now that I've given you what I know, I would ask if you have any questions that maybe I've missed.
When you were studying all this, did you take into consideration that going with the new units, because I don't know the age of the old units, that the increased efficiency that might help offset some of the...
That question was asked, and that was still the recommendation that came back. They did mention that the increased efficiency would help us out, though. They did say that. Yeah, we did talk about that. I'm sorry, I don't know your name, sir. Jason. And last name? Harris. Harris, Harris.
Felicia's dad.
Oh, hi. Okay. I never made that connection. Okay. Yeah, so we have a couple little pieces of urgency here. One is that the one that we have is limping along, and the elders have, when we went into this, we were of the mindset that God's going to keep that other unit working, and that we're still keeping our fingers crossed on that, please, Lord. But the other thing that we discovered in this process is that these units, these 12.5-ton ream units, they're switching to a new refrigeration system. And there's only 4 units that are available. Ashley reached out to Grant, and they're holding them for us. But the advice that we got from both my father and Bill Thomas at Johnstone is that we want to pick up these old units if we can get a hold of them, because every time that they start with a new refrigeration system in a new unit, there's always bugs and tweaks that happen and potential problems. So the advice was to try to secure 2 of these existing units, which we have done. We kind of have them in a holding pattern right now, waiting for congregational approval. Any other questions? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you through the glare. Oh, Denny's moving that we take a vote. All right, so I have a call for a vote on the floor. Anybody want to second that? Denny Braun.
What's the motion? We will go ahead with the purchase as recommended by the board.
Okay, so Denny's making a motion that we would follow the elder advice to proceed with the Grant Mechanical contract of $52,000 to replace both furnaces on the roof.
Could we roll into that, and I don't know if this is necessary. Well, just the roof. The roof, I mean, technically, the roof repair should be under 40, but I just wonder if you all want to,
Discuss that at this time.
discuss that and say we're
The
giving.
roof's 20-something, you don't even need a roof.
No, we don't. And the roof is a potential issue. We know that when those furnaces come off, and we do know that the bid actually, we might make a little leeway in there, Denny, in that motion, because when those furnaces come off, we don't know what kind of time it's going to take to repair the roof, and they may have to come back a second time with the crane, which is going to increase our cost a little bit. So it may not be at 52, it may end up being a little bit more than that. So we may want to make a little leeway in the motion when we do that. But it is an unknown factor about the roof situation when they get lifted. We're not sure what we're going to find. We don't know yet. We have a bid in from Story Roofing right now, but we're waiting on a bid from Bloxam. And Bloxam is who did our roof replacement a few years ago. Story is who did the roof on our new addition that just finished.
It'd be really great if you could schedule those 2 together, because they should be able to fix that roof same day that they take them off.
We are hoping very much so to make it a very cooperative effort. Yes, I agree.
So what else do you need besides what my motion is?
Well, I think that the roof we can, like Denny said, as long as it's less than $40,000, I think the bigger purpose is having all of you understand where we're at and what's happening so that we're totally transparent. We were hoping that the existing furnace was going to hold out until springtime so we could get a melt, right? And then we could really get an assessment of the roof. But then we were told it didn't matter, that they could replace it with current conditions. So I think that they prefer to wait till spring. Of course. It's definitely imminent. It's definitely, as soon as the weather gets nicer, we're looking at later this spring or, early summertime. I saw 57 one day next week, yeah. So, I'm sorry, what was that, Jerry? As long as they're holding those units. They are. They are. Okay, yep. So the hope is today, when we leave today, that we would put a deposit down with them, so we would hold them, and then we could work on the timing. Okay. Any other questions for me on the furnace situation or the roof? I'm sorry, Janet.
Okay, we're going to spend $24,000 on section 3 of the roof, right? But that's not the whole roof.
That's the oldest section, and the section that's after.
So, but how long has that roof been there?
Since 1981.
So we're looking down the road of needing to replace that too.
We want to do that.
Now,
So that will do this now.
yes,
Now,
yes,
section 3 will be the great roof.
yes. No, no, no.
Great room is section 3 goes over the back classrooms and the back of the fellowship hall. The fellowship hall. It's hard to understand where those sections are. It's the oldest section of roof, though.
Isn't it like right here?
No.
It's the white part in the middle there. Yeah, up a little bit, but yeah, that rectangle there.
When it's all said and when what we're looking to replace on the roof will be this back section here, but then also the repair that would happen underneath where the furnace units are, so that when the furnaces are replaced, then we know the roof is good for a while.
So everything in front of it will need to be
No, that's new. That's newer. We have replaced in the last many years the greater proportion of the roof. We have just a few sections remaining that have not been replaced in the last. Yeah. So these are the oldest sections of roof that have not yet been replaced. So actually what this does, I mean, when you look at like long-term big projects, and I shouldn't say this out loud, but I won't say it out loud. It sets us up, right, for a future not having really large expenses when we're talking about replacing the furnaces and the roof repair that we've already done, and the parking lot expense. Other than the carpet in Fellowship Hall. Can I hear an amen? Yes. The carpet in Fellowship Hall would be a big expense, and that's still on the wish list someday. Any questions on the roof or furnace situation?
Oh, I would just point out that, the furnace could be eligible for, rebate from the energy company. So I would look at that.
That's a good question. That's a good comment. Ashley's on it. Of course she is. Of course she is.
You mentioned that the crane, you would put some wiggle room in the envelope for the furnace project. Like in municipal finance, it's pretty common that they'll include like a 5% contingency or whatever, these big capital expenses, just for any unforeseen.
I like that wording. So he's suggesting that the motion, Denny, actually would have like a 5% contingency for wiggle room, which would give us another 2,500 or so. Yeah, I'm thinking maybe a 10% contingency, just in case. Right, no, we're going to try not. We're going to try really hard not to spend any more than we have to. So if I go with the current motion I have on the floor, which would be to proceed with the grant mechanical bid of the $52,000 to replace both of the existing furnaces on the roof with a 5% contingency on costs. Do I have a second on that? Oh, John Darrow, okay. I have a second from John, and then I would ask if there's any more discussion. All right, then I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor of proceeding with the motion to replace the furnaces to the tune of $52,000 plus or minus 5%, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. All right, great. That is the business part of our day. I'm going to turn the microphone back over to Pastor James to answer any questions on the parking lot, or any other questions in general about our, and I'll stay on the mic too.
So we're proposing, we've got some envelopes we've printed out. If you want to take a special giving envelope with you today, I'll leave them here. Those envelopes and our poster will go out by the Welcome Center. And we're officially kicking off a campaign to try to raise money for a new parking lot. So, go ahead.
How many spots will the new parking lot be?
Great question, Melissa. The parking lot will have the same number of... I turned it on, but I didn't wear it. So Melissa asked about the new parking lot as far as size and spaces. It has the same number of spaces that we have now, but we have a lot of spaces right now that you don't know are actually spaces. It's kind of strange. When you look out there, like there's spaces that go all the way down the side towards the road, and it's sort of an equation based on how many people we can fit in this room. So we have enough spaces, but we want to make those spaces more efficient. And the parking lot actually, I believe, gets a little smaller. We end up with less pavement, but the same number of spaces. Oh, I'm sorry, 160. Yes, 160. Yeah. This picture here? It's to scale. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. I mean, and in the future, like I even looked at it and I'm like, well, you know, you could put more spots here. You could have more diagonal spots there. I think they just stopped putting spots here because they hit the 160 number. So you could squeeze out another 20 spots probably in the future.
Are they just going to resurface the parking lot, or are they going to pull it up?
Yes, it's a whole new parking lot. So even this design is different. The parking lot comes out further this way. We get rid of all this pavement back here that wasn't real efficient. And yeah, the island gets longer but skinnier because we put all of our handicap spots here with a walkway. Yeah. So it's a full redo. They basically rip everything out, and then this engineering drawing that we had done is a brand new parking lot with more underlayment and yeah.
We have a lot of people that are not here today that come on Sunday morning. Do you have another plan to present
Yes.
parts of this?
We will be talking about this in church. I mean, not like in the sermon, but in the announcements, and having people out there to show this. I mean, obviously, having this up, people are going to be interested and want to come see it. And myself and Lloyd will be out there over the next few weeks to explain a lot of these answers to people that weren't here today. I'll be putting things in the email about it. Yeah.
Will Lloyd's ladies be with you?
Lloyd's Ladies. This is starting like the Price is Right. Barker's Beauties, huh?
I already ordered a T-shirt.
A fundraiser, Lloyd's Ladies t-shirt. Get your t-shirt now. Support the parking lot. No. If our bylaws asked for a quorum number for a vote, and they don't. No.
We actually eliminated that several years ago due to low attendance at congregational meetings.
We've had really good attendance at our meetings, though. So, yeah, thank you for coming. Bill?
Have we got the future upkeep figured in?
No. I mean, this parking lot done in the way that they're going to do it should last us 40 years. So we will be talking in an elder board meeting to come, now that we've going to be using our capital expense fund for furnaces and things. How do we replenish that? What's the long-term view so that, like you said, in 40 years, what happens? Because at some point, even this lot will need resurfacing. You got to paint it every once in a while. Yeah, so there will be expenses that, and we will have to budget into our upcoming budgets some money to go for that kind of maintenance. Yeah.
I think it's probably the most like financially conservative thing to do to consider the rental income just like a windfall.
Yeah.
But maybe one way to try to build on that is to like actively seek new renters. If there's any
Yep. Well, and that's the issue is there's not many openings. I mean, if you come here in the week, that gym is in use a lot of time. You'd be impressed. So we really use that to our advantage financially. And for the community. You know, there's a lot of community groups that use it, and they get a good deal too. We're not charging, you know, an arm and a leg because we like them here, but it helps us for sure. Yeah, just an arm. We just charge the arm. Any other questions? And certainly you can, if you don't want to speak up in the midst of everybody, you know, we will have more time. Feel free to stick around, ask questions, but we're excited about the lot that was designed. We think it's efficient. We think it makes more sense than the lot we have. Takes care of a lot of the issues that are out there right now. Now, the handicap, that was one of my big things. Right now, I mean, I know I went out there and I painted some different lines and tried to get the handicap parking closer, but that was because our handicap parking was so far away when I got here. So, what I painted this fall was just kind of a short-term, $200, some rattle cans, and this is. What's that?
We've got our painter for the line.
You got the painter for the lines, right? Yeah. Yeah, all of that is figured into their 361,000 bid. So that's bringing everything up, adding more stuff. Now there is one caveat to that. They said we have to know what's underneath there. So they're estimating how much material is underneath that. If they have to bring in more than they're expecting, then there's a per truckload. But so it encompasses that. It encompasses the painting the lines. It encompasses moving the lights because our lights will have to be moved. So it's a turnkey number for getting all this done.
Pastor, I think it's important too that they did their due diligence. They came in, they did
Yes.
the borings to see
Yep.
how much of that.
Elmer's came in, they did borings in several spots to see how much material was underneath and how much they'd have to add. Yeah, they've done this all the way.
Secondly, the other thing we did, we expanded the parking lot to do it right.
Thank you.
The reason for that with the new addition on the building, in the sake of walking, instead of
Yeah.
putting all the parking on the other side, we moved it this way, which also gives the option down the road to add more, because as you know, there's more room.
Yep. So if you can't hear Lon, and those watching online, not only did the parking lot come further this way, but it also went further this way. And, there are times when we've got a lot of people using the gym, but maybe we've got a lot of people using this side of the building. So it's kind of like you've got a lot of spots here that enter into our new entrance, and then a lot of spots down here that would go to this entrance. So, yeah, thanks for reminding me on that. It really has been well thought out.
What date are you shooting for that all this need to pray about?
Yeah.
Talked about what we're
So again, April 15th is the date where, at this point, Elmer's has said we will guarantee that until. I think it'd be great if we had the majority of what people have been praying about towards the end of March, because then that's going to give the elder board a chance to say, okay, we're this % of the way there. Maybe we feel confident in signing that contract and then gaining pledges for the rest or a small loan or whatever. We're going to know in 3 or 4 weeks' time. Hopefully in 3 or 4 weeks' time, we'll know how many of these spots got filled and how feasible this is. I mean, we've never done this before. We're a new congregation in a lot of ways, and I don't know what all is going to happen here. So we're going to find out together, see where we're at. And in 3 or 4 weeks' time, we're going to have a good idea of how feasible this is. Jim.
Just a real quick point. Right now, on our parking lot, we have 2 very deep grooves where they back up to the dumpster with a heavy
Yes.
dump truck.
Yep.
Not dump truck, garbage truck, because they weigh so much.
Correct.
Has Elmer's taken into account where that's going to be and
Yep.
do we support, get a good base?
The dumpster will go where it is right now, but they're going to do concrete approach up to the dumpster at the appropriate strength for holding. I mean, yeah, having a garbage truck roll all the way through your lot every week is not great because that's a heavy truck.
But the only place the grooves
The only place it got grooved is where they are constantly backing up again and again. Yeah, so that'll be cement at that place.
Are they gonna pave down to the creek?
Paved down to the creek. We have actually talked to them about putting a new driveway in from South Airport Road that would give us a flat driveway down over to our outside worship area. I think the quote for that was $8,000 to do the apron off of the thing. So if anybody loves that idea and wants to give another $8,000, maybe we can incorporate that in while they're here. But that was kind of like, oh, wouldn't that be nice? That was a dream, but we got to start with what we need, and yeah.
Any other questions, comments? Yes, Matt.
Does anybody know how many giving families we have here?
About 100. About 100 giving units. Last we did a tally, right?
Sounds about right.
I think it was.
I don't know if I've ever heard, but yeah. With 160 parking spots and needing to raise $260,000. Somebody divide that out for me. What does it come out to per parking spot that we have to raise? 5? 1625. So every one of these spots, we got to raise 1,625. That's based on we need to raise $260,000 divided by 160 spots. If you wanted to know what it's going to cost to buy your parking spot and one for somebody who's not here yet, yeah.
If I buy a parking spot, do I get my name on it?
Yes, it's going to be under the asphalt.
Yep. Yes, please. Do what? Yeah. So we looked into that, and it doesn't have the right support underneath it, number one. And so really the best way is to get rid of all the asphalt. There's several different layers. If you look out there, you'll see that what you can do with the parking lot sometimes is just put another couple layers of asphalt over the top. And that's been done in some places and not in others. But it's so badly cracked that they said even if we do that, the large cracks will be back within a year. And so we're like, well, we don't want that. We don't want to put all this money, and it was still going to be like $200,000 or $150,000 to $200,000 just to put new asphalt over it all. But then we'd end up with the same problem back again if we don't start fresh and do it right.
We did look at that way back
Yeah.
at the beginning, and it was a huge expense just to repair it, and then that was only a short-term fix.
It would get us 10 or 15 years. And it was like, well, who knows where the congregation will be in 10 or 15 years. Let's try to do the long right fix now.
Another thing about this is the drainage. This has been done in so many sections that it has messed the drainage up. That's why we have
Yes.
Creekside up here.
Creekside Pond?
Yeah, Creekside Pond, right?
Yeah, there's a part in our parking lot that slopes where the water just gathers. And that's where the parking lot is the worst because the water has nowhere to run. It just all comes wrong. So part of this is they will take all the old lot out and they will grade it appropriately so all the water has a place to go. Because it's the water that really is bad, the freeze thaw, it gets into cracks. So getting the correct drainage is something we trust Elmer's. That's built in the engineering plan, and Elmer's is good at following plans and doing it the right way. So that's a big part. Thanks for reminding me of that, Lloyd.
Any other questions?
Feel free to stick around afterwards. We can talk more. So,
We are incredibly fortunate that we just have this amazing facility, but it does require a lot of overhead, and it requires a lot of maintenance. So I thank you all for your dedication and your commitment to keeping this place, keeping the lights on and keeping the doors open, keeping our staff fed. They appreciate it too.
well, and like you said, a lot of these big projects, we're tackling some big ones here that, again, knock on wood, we should be knocking these off the list, crossing them off the list, and we won't have to do a lot of these things for 20, 30, 40 years.
Promise?
There's a lot of us that we won't have to see this again in our lifetime, put it that way.
Thank you all so much for your time and your attention today. Thank you for your vote, and please be careful going home. See you next week.